Oren, we're finally doing this. It kind of been a couple months in the making. How you doing?
Well, how are you?
I'm excited. I'm excited for this conversation. I'm excited to learn from you. You've spent over 20 years building B2B growth engine for organizations, and we're in an interesting point in time. I think there's a lot of organizations that are feeling the acceleration of change, and those who are accountable for marketing, whether they're in marketing or it's in growth or they're in another role, I think we're all feeling lightly overwhelmed. So, Oren, I'm just going to jump straight into it and talk about a topic that I think in the mind of many, I know it's been in mine, AI agents. Oren, what is an AI agent?
Yeah, uh, there's a few ways to answer the question. If I was to use a terminology that's commonly thrown around, it can mean anything to do with AI. That's not the real definition. That's how everyone's calling large language model capabilities and wrapping it around the word agentic or agents to make it sound much better than what they've really built for a lot of the cases. But the definition for agents, we're going to use the Anthropic definition, which is it's a large language model working in a loop with access to a tool. And what does a tool mean? Web search is a tool,
Mm-hmm.
for instance. So a tool is something that is not natively integrated into the large language model's code base.
Mm-hmm. So when we think about an AI agent, and I hear this all the time, a digital employee, do you think that's going too far? Or do you think that's in the neighborhood of a kind of trying to simplify a bit? How do you think about AI agent equals digital employee?
Love it. Yesterday, someone sent me a link and they're like, this is going to really interest you. And it was a virtual CFO, your CFO in a pocket. I was like, an AI CFO. That my first impression was that sounds dangerous. And then I scroll through it and it has absolutely nothing to do with what a CFO does, right? It's like pulling in some reports, providing some, predictive data and alerts if something changes. I was like, this is data automation. Like a CFO, if it's any good, is a person who has meaningful insight and experience and has a strategic shape or impact on the business. It's literally not around just the tactical execution of, this basic capability. And I was thinking like, why did they call it an employee? Or why did they say you're CFO? Because it just sounds good. It's like as if a good marketing message that sounds compelling, but it's massively overselling what the tool does and massively underselling what true CFO does. Now that's a pretty extreme example. If we look at a lot of the stuff on LinkedIn, I'd say it falls probably into that same category of fluff. An employee can be replaced with an agent if what the employee is doing is considered low level work. Saying that, there are a lot of employees that are being hit because of AI and agentic capabilities that would be considered a relatively specialized domain that don't fit that criteria. So, for instance, copywriters or graphic designers, anything that is now can be more easily done either in ChatGPT, like research, or visual design in Nano Banana, these people are definitely taking a hit on the low end and sometime to the middle, but not on the top echelon. Like top designers that are world class, they're not being affected probably by this. And the same thing with the best content writers who are highly specialized. They're not really being influenced. But all the people you can buy at $4 an hour in somewhere in the Far East on Upwork, yeah, they're probably really struggling. So yeah, it depends on like how flexible you are with what we consider an employee. But if you said like a middleweight, a manager level employee who's relatively specialized in an org of 250 people plus, like mid market plus, no, like that a person is so diverse with their capability and what they can do. How is an agent going to replace them? It's not quite there yet. Saying that, the rate the technology is improving it is getting so alarmingly good that that is getting progressively chipped away and eroded. So it is progressively going to replace employees, but at the moment, it's definitely overhyped.
And that overhype shows up on LinkedIn, YouTube videos. It's literally everywhere, and especially in the space of marketing, where marketers are pretty good at packaging, at branding. So let's zoom out and kind of begin to zoom in. So let's zoom out. I am speaking to a CMO, right, or someone who's leading the marketing function. The question of AI agents is being brought up. Do I say, let's first talk about the goals and then work our way to AI agents? Do I say, let's experiment? Do I say, let's talk about the possibilities of building our own and look at the jobs to be done? What at the highest level would you say are the first series of questions to be asked by a CMO in this context of this revolution we're living through?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because some of the CMOs are under pressure and mandated to show and evidence utilization of AI, even if it's not necessarily commercially advantageous. So if a CMO is in that position, you have to go and play around and show and explore AI capability. But if you're a CMO who is just looking to leverage AI and you're not, it's because you want to develop, because you want to drive impact, you want to increase efficiency, you have to start with commercial objectives and evaluate the tools objectively and only use AI if it's the right tool for your goal. Well, I think people are really curious and they're really bought into the potential upside and they want to use it. They want to learn about it. They want to understand it. So it's not as clear cut as it's just about commercial results. It's also about not, lagging behind, having a competitive advantage. There's a few different things that fit into the cocktail. I think it depends on how mature that organization is culturally, what tools they have available, because a lot of companies now they have a lot of constraints in terms of the new tools. Like I had a call with someone the other day and they were using an old version. We were going through, I was showing him how to use Cursor, and he had Cursor, and I was like, oh, the interface is different. I'm like, oh, you're in a really old version. Why don't we just upgrade it quickly and we can continue? Oh, I can't. I have to go to a procurement company and they log into my machine and they update it remotely, and I have to make a special request that gets authorized. And I'm like, wow, I mean, I get the need for security and necessity around procurement. And that's like not even a very large company. That was like a medium size. So if what's it like in a really large company? You can't even get access to the right tools that you need to unlock and unleash the capability. So I think there's other considerations taking into account, the team skill, the maturity, the organizational culture, the security, procurement, and you need to kind of think about all of that with regard of the objective to decide what to do with an agent. But yeah, if you wanted to start playing around with agents and you could get access to something, the simplest, easiest tool is probably NA10, and that will allow you to play around relatively easily to get some sort of basic agentic workflow going.
Yes, and let's dial in our conversation to those who are, call it, either smaller organizations or medium sized, because no doubt enterprise has an entirely different swim lane when there is a conversation around bringing in new technologies. And so NA10, I'm familiar, and I think many are. It blew up in the last couple of years as the conversation around AI agents began to get more and more traction. And before we even get into kind of the NA10, so from a CMO perspective, you identify the kind of the jobs to be done, right?
Yes.
These are the, as you said, commercial needs. And then there's the question of build or buy, right? How do you reconcile, how do you suggest for a CMO to think about it once they've identified a need? And by the way, I think many people just jump into it without having a need. I think that's really important to have an objective that you're trying to solve for, and we're not just pursuing a shiny new toy.
Yes. I'd say always go and buy if you can, and only build out of necessity, because there's so much cost sprawl that is unexpected and so much complication with building something custom. And I think people underestimate even just maintenance. You have to maintain it, you have to update it, let alone build it. It's not easy, and I do that for businesses, and I'm saying that I know. So I'd say if you've got a good tool that's relatively affordable. The funny thing is, I was, looking at a tool the other day, I don't want to name names, but it was selling you like 6 different things for that fixed price. And, for that client, we only needed one of the 6. And even though it could do that one thing well enough, we couldn't just get access to that one of the 6 things. So in that case, you might as well just build it yourself, because you're saving, a significant outlay. But it depends on like how complicated is that thing you need to build. What is your capability to build that thing? How confident are you can build it? And also, like, I was having a chat with someone earlier, and the person said, I'm happy paying a convenience tax. Like, I was like, why don't you just do this instead? You have more control. I don't need control. I just need speed. And then it's like, well, just buy it off the shelf then. Like, why faff around or trying to build it custom? It's going to take 4 times as long as you think and cost you twice as much. So if you want speed, just go for that. I think there's different needs that orgs have where custom build can become more relevant or necessary. I personally love building stuff, so I love the custom thing, but I'm not saying that's necessarily commercially the best move for companies.
I think that's great advice, and I'm living through it takes, would you say, 4 times longer, costs twice as much. As you know, we're building an AI agent ourselves, and we are realizing the hidden complexities to really get to quality, because it's super easy to build something low quality, super easy. I don't think there's ever been a time in history, I know, there's never been a time in history where you could build at such speed, low quality output. And I think that curve of quality and effort is now more relevant than ever. So what, in your experience as someone who's actually building things that ship, you're not just in a demo world, you're seeing results, which we'll get to, but what are some of the hidden costs of building AI agents that you think would be helpful for the listeners to keep in mind?
Sure. I think when people are building agents, they're probably thinking about the cost of API calls, which is dirt cheap, right? Or they're thinking about, cost of maybe fine tuning or using embeddings to get a more, relevant result set when you're trying to fetch something for a user. Or they're thinking, oh, if I can upload the data set and I'm not time sensitive, I can get a 50% discount. And all these things sound so appealing. And you think that's the cost base. That's not really the cost. The cost is multifaceted, starting from the painful process of refining and finding the right prompts for repeatable challenges or workflows that you're trying to engineer. The next big challenge you have is the complexity of native integration with APIs. They have a lot of nuance to them. And what happens is what's in that company's database and what the developer puts on the documents for accessing specific parts of that database, there's always like a misalignment. And if you have a complicated agent which has multiple integrations, you need to multiply that complexity. So that's another cost that people have. I think the control over the mistakes that can happen and how to run effective evaluations, they call them evals, in a methodical way to catch these hiccups, and how some of them can result in a costly mistake for a client. And that's kind of the nature of probabilistic models and AI models. That's probably like the biggest category of challenge in terms of agentic costs. I'd say overall agentic is very exciting, but it's still nascent. It's still very much in its infancy. And like a lot of research shows that the error rate is really high. There's one piece of research with like 89% error rate. So it's still really in its immaturity. I think a lot of people have a miscomprehension of the AI's capability, because of a lack of comprehension of how AI models actually work. They have a very rough mental model that is not representative of the complexity. And then they jump to conclusions or assumptions about what AI can do that it simply does not have the intelligence to be able to accomplish. So a lot of it is like user error, user engineering, and expectation. I think those are some of probably the more common ones that I see.
Perfect. Before we move on, tell me if you're thinking about it the same way that I've been thinking about it, as if you're going to be building an AI agent, make sure, people, process, technology, make sure that you've got the right people. Because if you think that you can take the team members that are, subject matter experts in their specific fields, and by the way, now it's different than to use co-pilots using ChatGPT, but by the way, let's go build AI agents, I don't think is going to work in 99% of the times. Thoughts?
So you're saying if you were to take the subject matter experts and take their knowledge and shove that into ChatGPT and hope that that's going to get you the result, that's not going to work?
Exactly. I'm saying
Yeah.
that in order to build AI agents, you want to bring on the people who are going to be accountable for that piece. That a subject matter expert cannot become an AI agent professional builder
Yes.
without a massive upskilling exercise.
Yeah. I think the problem here is for those who are non-savvy, they don't necessarily understand the fragmentation in engineering and data science. They don't know that you have data scientists, but then you have, natural language processing experts, then you have back-end experts, and you have, front-end experts, and you have Kubernetes experts, and there's subspecializations. And depending on how specialized your challenge is, you need the right level of expertise. And that's just data science. Agentic is actually engineering, statistics, data science, even like usability for the product, the front end. It's a multi-orchestrated collaborative effort, and you need a good enough quality of standard for each one of those specializations to produce something that's effective. So I think it's hard. Yeah, I don't think using ChatGPT with a subject matter expert is going to work as well as people think. It takes a lot of rigor to extract all the edge cases. Saying that, a lot of people don't know this, but like a lot of the large language models, they pay experts to answer questions and show and capture how they think about each step in order to train the AI model. So they're teaching the AI model how to think. It's really how to recognize patterns across repeatable problems. And they spend a huge amount of money to try and solve that because it's so complex. So for you to go and try and hack at that is very challenging. It's I don't think people understand the scale of how hard it is, because when you have a problem, you don't have a set way to fix it. There's lots of different ways to fix it, and that creates a lot of permutations, and that creates a lot of edge cases. So when you think, imagine having to ask someone 10,000 questions or 5,000 questions because of that breadth of expertise to capture all of the responses to be able to deliver a good enough solution. And that's so hard that if it wasn't hard, we wouldn't get hallucinations with large language models. Like if that was solved or it was easy to do, the AI LLM would be so good that we wouldn't even have to go through that route. But I think people just underestimate the complexity of how hard it is to capture human knowledge because it's so contextual and that expertise. And I think people think and compare AI to humans, and then it's not a right. You can't compare like biological neurons that fire to statistical models that are man-made. That human brain is so much more complex. So I think the AI is very good with very domain-specific areas of expertise that the human brain is not as good at. Like computation of numbers and speed to writing Python scripts, things of that nature that AI can do really well. These are very specialized use cases. And you can see, you don't need to break your head over thinking like, but what are the right specialized use cases? Just follow the revenue. So look at Cursor, look at Lovable, look at you know, all of these fast growing categories of AI players, and that will show you what the AI is really good at in that problem set and category set to understand what AI is really good at. And the way a lot of people are using AI, especially in go-to-market, especially in marketing, is very different than where AI is actually the best at. So it's really good at producing code, really good at analysis, and people are using it to do thinking and content creation. And they're not actually leveraging the AI for where it's really excellent at, which I think is quite fascinating.
I totally agree, and I'm so tempted to go deeper there, but I don't think this is for this podcast. I think there could be other podcasts because I'm literally living through this right now on a weekly basis. We are looking at the quality versus the lift, and when it goes from as simple as input, LLM output, in between the amount of sophistication from history to how do you ingest the content to how do you reduce it's reducing hallucinations and improving quality is a monster task. But I'm going to footnote this. If you got anyone watching this wants to go deeper or think we should have another episode to go deeper on this, let me know. But Oren, where I'd like to go next is best first use cases, the wins. Let's talk about where you're seeing this ship and deliver.
Yeah, it ships and delivers in lots of different areas. I think it depends on which context we're talking about. Like if we're talking about rudimentary day to day, I'm seeing efficiency in like translation. You know, companies are letting go of their translation agency to turn content into another language. Everything to do with like content generation, research, and increasing efficiency is allowing people to ship faster or more. You know, sales call analytics and insight analysis is obviously an obvious example. Anything to do with like content generation or rewriting at scale. So for example, had a client needed to rewrite 2.5 million Google ads, rewrote them, moving from templates into AI generated, and that resulted in like a 400% increase in conversion because the ad copy was better, more relevant, tighter. So you had better click-through rate, better impressions, better conversions as a result of that engine, right?
2.5 million. Imagine doing that manually.
No, yeah, you couldn't. It cost you tens of thousands of dollars to pay all the VAs to rewrite the ads. And what would you have to do every time you need to rewrite the ad because something changes? The cost burden would be, that's why they hadn't done it. That's why they use templates. But then with AI, they get more real estate as well because the AI is able to produce more relevance for the ads. It showed up in more auctions. So they had an increase in probability of getting that click, which delivers a conversion, not just an increase in the number of conversions for the number of people who saw the ad to begin with. So like the metrics looked better across every single dimension. AI was able to do that. So that's a very practical use case. That's like on the easier, lighter end. And on the more complicated end, you know, I had a client, they've got thousands of customers and we needed to do ideal customer profiling. So I had to build a custom model for that. And it would have taken me 6 months, maybe 3 months. I don't know. It depends. It would have taken me a long time. I actually did it in like 3 weeks. So, you know, anecdotally, tasks that are very complex, that require a lot of data analysis, I can ship them a lot faster than I could previously as a result of leveraging tools like Cargo, Clay, NA10, Cursor. So I use these tools quite a lot.
And would you say the tools you're using have you built any of them in NA10 or any other technology yourself, or would you say the ones that you're getting results from have been built for the exclusive purpose that you're using it?
Oh no, it's always I'm always stitching together a workflow using those tools. Those tools, they're very versatile with allowing you to create what you need. But I can't think the last time I went, oh, that's a template I need. Download it and it does what I need end to end. Like I can't remember the last time I had that. But maybe that's more reflecting of me loving to tweak and customize and explore than it is necessarily a representation of the templates not being good, you know? So I'm not sure what that could be. I'm biased with that experience. But yeah, I always custom build stuff. I like building, so I'm biased towards that.
Understood. And let's talk about whichever tool being used and however AI copilots or AI agents being used. Let's talk about the concept of the human in the loop and how important it is. And also, kind of, is it for the foreseeable future? It's very difficult for us to speculate years out. I'm having a super hard time because if 3 years ago to predict where we are now, how could we predict 3 years out? But Oren, I'd love to have human in the loop point of view on this moment, and then how far out can you see that human in the loop position to your best understanding today?
Yeah, so I'd say my human in the loop engagement with them, I'm running like 6 projects simultaneously. So I'm running like 9 agents across multiple projects. And they're just because it takes them a long time to run because it's large data sets. And then I bounce between the projects. And it's really interesting, kind of get into this black hole of time. And then I kind of emerge. And then I have my normal activity. So it's a very interesting experience. And in that black hole of time, I'd say my reliance has increased by 20 or 30% even to 6 months ago. So I'd say I'm progressively out of the loop with more confidence as the AI models improve. So will there not be a human in the loop in the near future? It's more like there's a dwindling in the levels of QA you need to do. So if now you have a complicated workflow, you have to QA 15 steps. In 6 months' time, it's 6 steps, and in a year time, it's 2 steps. Beginning, give it an outcome objective. The end, make sure the outcome objective was clear. Maybe a review of the process, see the process made sense, and then you're good to go. So you've got minimum 3 steps. So I think that's the way it's going to. It's already happening. I'm seeing it. I'm experiencing it every day. So that's the direction of travel. I think the humans will become critical in the orchestration and filtering and understanding the specific perspective that they want the AI to follow. And even though it seems obvious to us, there's a few different perspectives at any given time, and the risk is choosing the right perspective. That's where the risk in terms of the impact that you want to have with a given project is if the AI starts to do everything end to end for you. It's almost like the constraint becomes creativity more than anything else, which is a very different way of operating than ever in history. Because, as since the Industrial Revolution, but even you could argue before that, you had a fisherman and you had a hunter who hunts deer. It's very likely they had different specialized skill sets. So we've always had specialization in human history. Industrial Revolution obviously accelerated that into all these sub-specialized professions. But now, if the specialization, it's not that we're not going to have the specialists, is this is going to be very few of them. They're going to be the ones who are creating new innovation and research in a given topic, all the PhDs in that specific area who are creating innovation, which the AI can't do. They'll leverage AI to do it. And then you have everyone else who is almost like more of a generalist who's not advancing a specific topic, trying to do their own workflows. So this is what like when I look at what's happening, this is the direction of travel. It's a fascinating curiosity because we've never really had anything like that technologically that I can think of.
Brilliantly said, from hunting for deer specialization all the way to now having, in the future of AI, very specific, deep experts with everyone else becoming generalists, I would imagine, across broader and broader spectrum of topics. Because the value will now be in connecting the dots. And in that kind of spirit, I'm curious, when we think about go-to-market as a discipline, kind of jumping a little bit in that direction, I've been very fascinated to think about the history of go-to-market. And it almost seemed in many organizations as a to-do for marketers. Hey, we need a GTM plan. And it seems that there's an elevation of go-to-market from my view, as a very senior function to say, hey, this is how we bring together marketing, sales, and it could be ops, customer success, depending on what product or services. And in that context of AI helping us become generalists, there's this GTM engineer that has now, as a title, has been created. So, kind of, Oren, what is your point of view on looking at generalists from a go-to-market perspective? What do you think this means in the coming, I don't know, months? Again, I don't dare to say years. I can't speculate that far, but in months.
Yeah, got it. So I don't know if you saw my LinkedIn post today. I compared 1,380 go-to-market engineers to 1,380 revenue operations folk. And if you see that comparison on skills and capabilities, let's first define what go-to-market engineer is, and I'll answer that question, because people listening may have a different conception of what it means. So to summarize it, a go-to-market engineer is focused on creating workflows. There's a propensity towards outbound. They're focused on demand gen, and they're using AI native tools like Clay and A10. That is kind of the quintessential definition of a go-to-market engineer. If we contrast that to a revenue operations person, which is like the closest legacy job title, they're more focused on BI visualization. They're focused on CRM integration and connecting processes and systems. They're much closer to helping and supporting sales, operating, cleaning, and making sure that all the systems are working. As a whole, revenue ops, which is once again the owner of marketing ops, sales ops, and customer success ops, right? All these operations roles consolidated to try and create alignment, is a much more mature function. There's about 7,500 of them in high GDP English speaking countries in comparison to go-to-market engineering, which is more nascent, and then in more mature organizations as a result of it being an older codification. It was created in 2018, grew popular about 2 years ago as a term, and it's still, it's funny enough, is in itself still nascent, revenue operations. So if we now go back to the question, now that we've defined a bit more GTM engineering and defined revenue operations, contrasted them to understand them, the question is, what does it mean to be a go-to-market engineer? What does it mean to be a revenue operations person? Let's look at what they're doing to answer the question. So if they're using NA10 or Clay, what is the skill or capability necessary to use those tools? It's an understanding of the tool. What does that mean? Understanding the integrations, the workflow, the UX, UI. If you just strip all of that away and you put a chatbot on there and you said, you don't need to learn the interface, you don't need to learn the workflow, you have a chat that you can talk to, and you explain what you want, and it will go figure out the right integration. It will go and figure out, it will present the options to you. What is the value of the Clay specialist? I'd argue their value drops to zero. What do you need the Clay specialist for? You now just need to know what your business outcome is. And if you're a strategic leader or commercially savvy, that's enough. Like I speak to CROs, they know what they need to do. They just don't have the skill to go and do it. They don't know how to run a query for Python to pull something with the database. But if they could chat to do that, they wouldn't even go to that Clay. They just do it themselves. That's what they want. They want the insight, they want the knowledge, they want to run it themselves, they want control. So I think that's true about any specialized tool in the go-to-market stack. I think it's going to become irrelevant with the agentic movement. And what we're going to have is we're going to have a lot of custom solutions that are built on the fly using multiple integrations in order to complete a job's to be done, to complete a desired task, to drive an outcome, commercial outcome. I don't think that's going to happen in months. I think it will happen in years. I think it can happen in even as close as a year or two if there is a meaningful breakthrough in the quality of large language models. I think at the current trajectory with the iterative improvement, I would project that it would be 3 to 5 years with current rate of improvement, because the specialists, they still have a lot of expertise that's required that LLM cannot compensate. Saying that, this is a very flat view of expertise in that it's assuming that the expert doesn't bring a filter or perspective. It's assuming the expert doesn't bring strategic experience or commercial acumen. It's assuming that the person who's operating all of this is able to tap into a multitude of perspectives, which you get when you cross-collaborate with other people of different ages, of different genders, and different geographies, of different backgrounds. You have a plethora of diversity of both creativity and intellectual power. But in theory, if the AI is so good, you can get not only more perspectives than your current limitations of what you can pay for the team, you'll get them faster and more objectively. And at the rate of improvement AI is, you'll probably get them to a deeper, higher quality degree than the average expert. So right now, if you look at it at the rate of improvement, even now, ChatGPT 5.2, they claim that based on the internal benchmark of like 1,500 professionals, they're achieving a 77% score. So the AI is doing as good a job as a professional with 14 years experience 77% of the time. Okay, so in 6 months, it's 95%. And you're like, wait a second, am I going to have AI, which is super cheap and gets me 80% of the result, or have the fixed overhead and cost and complexity of having someone in my business with 14 years experience? And obviously, as a business owner, the economics are going to make that decision for that person, right? So this is what I think is what's going to happen. This is what I think is happening. I think it depends about breakthroughs in LLMs, but I think this is like where SaaS is in a real interesting turning point as a result of agentic.
And it withstands the hypothesis you shared earlier, where generalists are now going to be running the 95% quality, and where 99% is needed are those very specialized subject matter experts come in. There are very few of them, because most of the time, 95% is freaking good enough. If you could have a team at 95%, that's at your fingertips. Oren, I feel like I could do this with you all day. There's so much brilliance that you could share. But I'm looking at time, and I want to ask one question that I think is on the mind of many, including me. How do we stay up with this? I don't even know if it's avalanche or if we need to invent new terms for it. I mean, you name the platform, you name the technologies. You could just follow OpenAI or Claude or Gemini or Grok, just that one, on what they're doing on a weekly basis. But to follow all of them and all the new tools that are being built, we're building a tool ourselves, and we're like, how do you stand out? So, Oren, what would you recommend? What would you advise marketing leaders that are already kind of smoked, right? There's a lot going on, to be able to stay up to date on what's relevant and will impact their plans for 2026?
I think there's a simple answer and there's a long answer. The simple answer is you don't. It's an avalanche. It's overwhelming. It's not humanly possible. Don't try. I don't think anyone wants to hear that, so I'm going to give you the long answer. The key is to provide enough context to an AI to curate the right sources for you. So, for example, for me, I use Perplexity Comet to look at all of the recent research from the top 25 AI kind of, the OpenAI blog and the Anthropic blog and, research institutes, MIT, etc., around the AI. And then it provides me with like a daily digest. Now, what you could do is you could put a filter, which is like, who's your ideal customer profile and who's your target audience and, who are your competitors and how are you differentiated, and pick and filter things that are more specific to you. Like, these are all the tools I use. I want to know all the recent updates to do with these specific tools. So you could have a more curated view of the world using AI rather than try and get yourself to sift through an impossible, because it's almost like, I get the question a lot. It's almost like, okay, how can I consume all the pages in Wikipedia? Or like, how can I become an Olympic champion in all the sports in the world? It's like these questions there's an appetite and an ambition, but they're not the right question. The question isn't how do I stay on top of AI? The question needs to be, how do I find the signal in the noise that's most relevant for my needs? I think that's the better question to be asking.
Oren, amazing. I almost drifted into the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? It's most important now than ever to find the right questions to ask. This has been a blast. Thank you for joining, Oren. And how can folks find you?
Yeah, I have a newsletter. You can sign up on my website homepage, and I produce a lot of content on LinkedIn. So make sure to drop a follow. You can click the little bell to get all the updates because the LinkedIn algorithm can get a bit funny.
Fantastic. And I'll drop a link to your website and your LinkedIn for folks to find you. Oren, thank you so much for joining.
Real pleasure.